Oilerslive podcast. Oilerslive podcast.
Now, get ready to talk hockey. Streaming from the Oilers Live Studio. Subscribe or follow today.
Hey, it's Michael here with another edition of Oilers Live Tuesday. Sorry, we're starting a little bit late today, but it's all because I had to get my guest prepped and ready. Mr. Ryan Lotsberg.
I'm pretty high
Welcome to the
maintenance,
show.
I know. Sorry, everybody.
Very, very high maintenance, but happy to have you.
Thank you.
Ryan, of course, is one of our top contributors over at heavyhockey.com and just released a new article tonight. We'll talk about that as well as other things around the league. It's Patrice Bergeron retirement day, so that's a big deal. Yeah, thoughts about that, by the way, Ryan?
Yeah, it's I mean, I've been a fan of Bergeron's pretty much his entire career, like even going back to like thinking of him playing on a line with Sidney Crosby at the World Juniors in 2005. And
Awesome.
yeah, I mean, one of the best defensive centers to ever play the game. I mean, 6 Selke trophies speak for themselves. And he's a rare top line player whose performance didn't really decline into his mid-30s.
Well, I mean, just won the Selke, right?
Yeah, he just won the bloody thing, and he was still producing like a top line player this year, and on one of the better lines in the league with him and Pasternak and Marchand. So yeah, I mean, that's a big blow to the Bruins and a blow to the league as well because he's a class act.
Yeah, 100%. I there aren't many guys like, he just was quietly one of the best players in the game. Even I don't know if you could say that, but
yeah, like he didn't have the spotlight thrust upon him very often. Like he did it pretty quietly. You're right.
I mean, in Boston, when they had the Hart Trophy candidates, it wasn't Bergeron, it was Pasta, right? So
Yeah,
it's but it's hard to say that he wasn't or isn't the most important guy on that team year after year. He's just such a good player.
I mean, we're about to find out just how important he actually was.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, it's amazing that a guy in his retirement year can go out with a Selke. Guys typically they're on their downswing, if you will, when they get to that level.
Yeah,
Not Bergeron. I mean, he's I always some guys are just fans of a team. I'm fans of the game. I think a lot of the folks over at Heavy Hockey are, and if you're a fan of the game, you are definitely a fan of watching a guy like Bergeron play, and it's a sad day, sad loss for the league.
absolutely. And like the other aspect I think is might be a little lost is just the amount of injuries that he had in his career. Like he played through a punctured lung and a broken foot in the Stanley Cup Finals against the Blackhawks, and I know he's had multiple other significant injuries in his time too, but he always came back stronger and it was able to be consistent even in the late part of his career. So that tip of the cap, lots of respect for Bergeron.
Yeah, absolutely. He finished with just over 1,000 points, if I'm not mistaken.
I believe so.
I wanted to sorry, I got a note, and as an insider,
Always working the phones, hey?
always working the phones, I had to read it. Something actually Heavy Hockey Showdown related, and now it'll weed its way into tonight's episode. Anyway, we're starting late tonight, folks, so we're gonna maybe try to go through this a little bit quick. As most of you know, I'm based in Atlantic, Canada, so it's closing in at the witching hour already for me, and I know even back home in Alberta, it's pretty late there even. So we'll kind of run through this, and it is the off season. Biggest news of the day is Bergeron. That's big news, but outside of that, I mean, there's some arbitration rulings to talk about. We'll talk about Oilers headlines. We've got some good ones for you. This has been how we've been running the show of late. And as I said at the start of the show, Lotzi put out a new article today, so we'll talk about that. All of the headlines, if you're on YouTube, if you're watching on YouTube, you can go into the description of the show. The headlines we discuss today will be in there. And we'll start with maybe the biggest one of the offseason as far as the Oilers are concerned so far, which is the DFO Rundown was on the other day. Sarah Valley, who has his hand on the pulse of the league, typically is a pretty good insider in terms of knowing what's going on. And Gregor, we're talking about Ryan McLeod, and Bouchard, and their contracts or lack of. Gregor started the Oilers segment there with basically saying he thought that the McLeod contract was close. And then Sarah Valley was quick to say, that's not what I heard. So, I guess, the and maybe I'll give you a bit of another summary there. Sarah Valley said it's not accurate. Sarah Valley also said the Oilers want just south of $2 million. That's what they'd hope McLeod to sign McLeod for. And then, they pointed out the obvious, which is you've got these two players to sign. Whatever McLeod kind of takes over that $2 million mark is money out of the pocket of Bouchard, especially for this year. Bouchard doesn't have arb rights, so he kind of, he's left, barring an offer sheet, I guess, he's left with whatever he gets. Gregor suggested the Bouchard camp would be looking at Keandre Miller and Bowen Byram as comparables. Sarah Valley thought that Bouchard was maybe a little bit better than that. Those two are around $3.8 million. So I guess your thoughts right now on this whole Bouchard and McLeod thing. What's kind of the best case scenario in your head?
Yeah, I mean, best case scenario, first and foremost, is 2-year deals. We need cost certainty heading into next season because of Connor Brown's expected performance bonuses. That's $3.25 million, approximately, somewhere in there. Yeah, the cap, we don't know how much the cap is going to go up by next season. It's supposed to go up by $3, $4, $5 million, something like that. And Connor Brown's taking up the most of that by himself. And we don't even know if we're going to have that player on our roster next summer, right? So having some cost certainty with McLeod and Bouchard would be fantastic. I did a piece on McLeod's ARB case the other day. It's actually linked in the article that I did tonight. I guess my predicted numbers involved for both sides were a little bit off. I figured the Oilers would be asking around 1.5 and McLeod just over 2, but Sarah Valley is reporting the Oilers want just under 2 and McLeod wants somewhere around 2.5. So I'm definitely not going to be surprised if McLeod ends up over 2 million. His contract comparables are all getting close to 2 or 2.25. Clean Costin had the same amount of points in one fewer game played, I think, or something. Their numbers were basically identical this year. He got 2x2. Philip Kurashev is another one. I mean, McLeod's a center, Kurashev's a winger, but similar amount of points, even though I will say Kurashev did it in 70 games, whereas McLeod only played 56 or 57. So I'd say low twos. I think 2.25 would be the high mark for McLeod. It'd be the low. I think he'll be in there somewhere.
Yeah. Great points. And by the way, I put the QR code for those watching. Scan that. You can get the link to the iTunes episode of the DFO Rundown where they talk about this. I think you're probably accurate. By the way, I loved your article on the McLeod arbitration. Good stuff. as always. Yeah, I mean, I see him as a $2.5 million player. I mean, they one of the things Gregor and Saravalli did bring up was that he's the guy that took the haircut before, right? Because he didn't have arb rights. So
Yep.
the guy's got to get paid. I mean, I had somebody, one of the good listeners on the show, put out a tweet and asking myself, Dash, Low Tide, what he thought. Like, do we think that players need to be a little bit loyal to the team? And does McLeod need to have some team loyalty? And you know what? I don't think so. I mean, look, their careers are not long careers. McLeod's not the type of player that's guaranteed anything year over year. So if he can cash in when he can cash in, he's got to take it right now. Right? It's he hasn't the difference, one of the differences, and another fellow brought it up in that same thread, was you look at a guy like Derek Ryan, who's made 12 million or so, I think it was, over the course of his career, and Ryan McLeod. And Derek Ryan's of course set up, and he's been around the league for a while, and Ryan McLeod's made like 2.5 million for his career earnings. So this is just a case of a kid that needs to get paid, right? And so I'm not going to begrudge him for that fact.
No, I'm with you.
For
And
sure.
like, you got to know your worth in life, right? You can't let people or companies walk all over you. And you're right, McLeod's, I mean, a professional athlete has such a short playing window, like such a short opportunity to really cash in. And like, really, whether we're talking 2.1, 2.25, like, it's a very small fraction of a percentage point against the cap, right? So we're nickeling and diming a guy. I mean, the Oilers need the cap space and they need to keep money low for another guy, which is totally understandable, which is why I think it probably will go all the way through the arbitration case. But yeah, there's no ill will towards McLeod for asking for what he thinks he's worth.
So we should do a whole episode almost, or we could do a whole episode almost, on something that Gregor and Gregor and Saravalli started talking about with Bouchard, which is Bouchard's camp obviously is asking for, or would like to get that Keandre Miller type of money, right? And the question that Gregor put forward was, like, how important is Bouchard to the power play? Like, your top three guys are obviously Draisaitl, McDavid, and Nugent Hopkins. And if you had to slot Darnell Nurse into the power play, would it be really that bad? And does
No, it
that,
wouldn't.
if you had to, like, if by the end of all of this they sign Bouchard to a 1-year type of deal, or something that they need to consider a trade, right, at some point, is that the worst thing? I mean, there's going to be a lot of players, a lot of people out there that think that you absolutely cannot do that. But look, Gregor's got a point, which is, Bouchard's not, he's fourth guy on that list, right? I mean, he's great on a power play, but he is fourth most important guy on that power play.
Yeah, let's be real. The function of the point man on the Oilers power play is to quickly move it over from one side of the ice to the other. That's really it. Take the odd shot. So you're right. Fourth, maybe even the fifth most important guy, because the guy net front and banging pucks in and finishing on the beautiful chances that McDavid and Draisaitl and Nuge create, that guy's pretty important too. And the power play's been exceptional, whether it's been Darnell Nurse, whether it's been Tyson Barrie, or whether it's been Evan Bouchard in the last handful of years. Even Clefbaum, we could throw him in there too. So from that respect, maybe he's not the most important piece on the power play, but I will say that Evan Bouchard is a young, top pairing potential right hand D, puck moving. Like his skill set is extremely rare and extremely valuable. So that's a guy we got to try to hold on to, in my opinion.
Yeah, and all of that to say, I do think we do need to hold on to him for sure. But if it came to it, I don't think it's the end of the world for the Oilers. It's just one of those unfortunates, and it's altogether possible given the cap situation, given the Connor Brown deal, given some of the the direction some of these things are going. But I don't think the Oilers are going to have to worry about that this year. I think Bouchard, they'll get that deal done. I do feel like they'll get a 2-year deal done somehow. I think that's what's going to happen. Obviously, worst case is they get a year done, and it's not exactly what Bouchard wants.
Yeah, I mean, like if from Bouchard's perspective, I think a 1-year deal is probably better for him because he starts making more money sooner, right? Like the number he gets in this contract, whether it's 1 year or 2, it's probably going to be in and around $4 million, right? But if he has another season, like if he keeps playing like he did at the end of last year, or over a point a game in the playoffs, if he carries that over through a full regular season, money, like who knows what he's going to make next season.
Yeah. Hard to tell. All right, let's move on. Next article up is your article. This is on heavyhockey.com. Title is Deep Dive Dustin Schwartz. And so obviously there's a name that either makes people cringe or some people don't even care.
Yeah, make most people cringe.
Give us the this article's been published in the last hour, so I haven't had a chance to read it fully, getting ready for the program. Give us a bit of a background of it, and let's discuss.
And so the reason I decided to do this was after my recent appearance on 97 Octane, where we had Mike Commodore on the show, and he was having a poignant argument with Chad about Dustin Schwartz, and he was having some fun with it. But I decided to do some research for myself and just see how effective has he been. But I did notice a very interesting trend with Schwartz's goaltenders that have been number ones with the Oilers, which is they've all peaked in their second seasons with the team. Cam Talbot had his best year in 16-17, which was his second year with the Oilers. Mikko Koskinen had his best year as an Oiler in his second year, which was 18-19, the year that Talbot ended up getting traded. And then Mike Smith, his best season was his second year, to the All-Canadian division year. So it's a trend. So we'll see if it continues.
So you think, based on that trend, are you suggesting that in their third season we'll see a decline if the trend continued?
That is exactly the trend. Really good in year 2, and then gets irrecoverably bad in on and after year 3.
Interesting. Angels chimed in. He says Talbot's about to have his best season yet.
Well, I know he's cheering for that.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, what do you think that means? Did you come up with any conclusions from that, or just it's an interesting trend?
It's an interesting trend, but like there are some coaches whose shelf life just is short when it comes to players. Like I was comparing it to like Daryl Sutter, John Tortorella. Like you get an immediate like influx of performance, and then the methods wear down. Like the message starts getting tuned out for whatever reason. And I'm not going to pretend I know what Dustin Schwartz is saying to guys. I don't know his goaltending philosophy, but I do know it stops being effective after year 2.
Yeah.
So I don't know why that is. I wish I did. I'm curious now.
Yeah, and the Oilers have not in any way, shape, or form ever seemed like Schwartz was, going anywhere. Like that's just never been a conversation outside of the, pundits and everybody else out there that has sort of glommed onto Schwartz as being the reason for some of the Oilers' goaltending woes. I guess, if when the in that when you were looking at these Oiler goalies and you said they peaked, was it their second season with the Oilers or their second season in the league?
Second season with the Oilers.
Okay. And then a sharp decline. Did any of them see an uptick as soon as they moved to a different team? Or maybe there's not
I didn't
enough
have the
of
word
a
count to go
sample
that far,
size.
but I mean, the guys we're looking at here are Cam Talbot, Mikko Koskinen, and Mike Smith. Right,
Yeah,
so Cam
okay.
Talbot, we can follow Talbot's career, and it hasn't been pretty. Like
Yeah.
Calgary, Minnesota, a little bit of a resurgence in Minnesota. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but playoffs the 1 year, injury riddled year in Ottawa, and we'll see how he does in LA here.
Yeah. I mean, the in goaltending is not something I know anything about. It's just such an odd thing. The one area that and with all respect to Schwartz, who I'm sure is great at what he does and everything, but it's being an Oilers fan and you look at this team and you see the challenges we've had with goaltending year over year. Like, why wouldn't you try something new, I guess, is the question.
It's
I always think, like, there's all these teams make wholesale changes all the time. Schwartz will be fine. He'll find another job somewhere. Like, give him give him his 30 days or 60 days or 90 days and go and begin a search for a different goaltending coach and just try a different direction for a change.
I mean, I don't think it would hurt to necessarily do that, but it's like that. I don't know if you're a golfer, but it's like that one shot every few rounds or that one good round every handful of rounds that just keeps you coming back. Like his good seasons from his goaltenders have been spread out enough where it's like, okay, we see some potential here. It's not like 9 terrible seasons in a row. It's like, oh, your goaltender here is doing really well. We're seeing an upward trend. We're going to keep you around for a little bit and then crash. And then the cycle repeats, right? So there's glimpses of some good things happening, but overall, I think long term, like they can't expect to keep playing musical chairs with their goaltenders and expect to win in the McDavid and Draisaitl era here. So something's got to change, and maybe Campbell sticks, maybe Skinner becomes a dominant number one. Who knows? But something's got to give.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just kind of putting that out there. I mean, maybe that's just one area that the Oilers can try something new. And I'm
one
not
of the few areas they haven't.
There are a lot of goalies out there who would tell you that the goaltending coach doesn't even have that much, effect on the goalies. And I hate that because I've heard that from some good goalies, that their goaltending coach doesn't make much of a difference. And then I've heard from good goalies that goaltending coach means everything to them. So, goalies can't even agree on what makes goalies. Neil says, who should the Oilers get instead? Name 5 goalie coaches. I don't know. I couldn't name you 2 goalie coaches, to be fair. I can name you 1, and that's Dustin Schwartz. And the Oilers goaltending has never been best in the league for a while. The closest we got to anybody staying up in the stats was Skinner last year with the save percentage, right? I think that's the closest anybody's been, and certainly we haven't had any goalies rocking the shutouts, but that's probably more to do with defense than goaltending.
Yeah, we know team defense has been shoddy in front of the goalies for a long time.
Yeah, I'll argue that for a long time is the Oilers, have maybe taken some good goalies and made them look bad, just because of bad defense. Neil does say Skinner praises Schwartz for his success. Now is not the time to change that. Neil, I think guys do that in this league all the time. Like they constantly praise the people that are working around them because that's what they're told to do.
What's he gonna say? His goalie coach
Yeah.
sucks.
Yeah, exactly. And
Yeah.
he knows as well as anybody that Schwartz is under fire. I mean, they see some of this stuff. All
And
right,
let's
let's
be
move on.
real, like and Skinner was drafted in 17, and he last year was his first full season in the NHL. And so he was working with the Condors goalie coach Sylvain Rodrigue up until last season. It's like Schwartz probably has a little bit of say on the organizational depth chart, like what happens in Bakersfield, but day to day, he's with Sylvain Rodrigue and up
Yeah.
until this past season.
I do like some of the suggestions there. Dursa from 97 Octane says Sean Burke or Marty Brodeur. Some stranger says Rollison. An ex NHL goalie, I think, would be great. Somebody who just guides them to, know what it's like to play in the NHL. Rolly the goalie would be as good as any. All right, let's move on from this one. Next one again. This is we're talking about this is from the Oilers Nation. What should we expect from Vincent Desharnais in 2023, 2024? It's by Bagged Milk over at Oilers Nation. It basically, I could summarize this story, but we all know what it is. Here's a guy that came into the league. He's great. He's loved mostly because of his cap. Not mostly. He obviously plays a great game, but he came in, big hulking defenseman. Had a couple rough spots in the playoffs, but overall, I thought has played well. Where do you see this guy going? Do you project him to be any more than a third pairing D man with the Oilers? He's obviously he's what 26, 27 now going into this year. I think he was 26 last year, right?
Yeah, I don't know when his birthday is, but yeah, he was 26 last season.
Yeah.
But
So
generally
thoughts on what we can expect from him this year?
probably a little more of the same, but a little more consistency with a few less errors. Like guy's 26 going on 27 years old. We typically know what a professional player is by this stage in their career. It's been take a little bit longer to develop, but realistically, like it's a fantastic story that he's made the NHL and is solidified a third pairing role with the Oilers, but that's probably as high as he goes with any team. I could see him bouncing around the league for a few years beyond his time with the Oilers. But that being said, I like what he brings to the table. Like he's got size, he's got reach, he skates okay for a guy of his size. Keeps it simple out there, knows his role, knows his limitations. So that's a guy you feel comfortable sticking in your third pairing.
Do you expect a sizable difference from last year?
I don't think sizable is the right word for what I would expect. Like he's going to have a little more polish to his game. He's got another year under his belt, another year of professional hockey under his belt, and he's got an NHL playoff run under his belt now. He's going to learn from that experience, and he'll get a little better from it. But like, I don't expect his game to change. And if you're going to be a second pairing D-man in the NHL, you need to be putting up points. And Desharnais does not put up points. Like he's strictly a shutdown guy that's going to get limited minutes and PK minutes, which important.
Larson wasn't a points guy.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. Okay. Typically, if you're going to be second pairing, you need to throw up some points. I think he got 5 points in the games he played last year, which wasn't great. But he's going to be a bigger guy this year. I think one of the great things that I see from Desharnais, or we should see from Desharnais, going into the next season, there were a couple of like youthful mistakes. And I say that he's a 26-year-old already in the league, but the yelling at the refs, that kind of thing that young guys don't get away with, right? They haven't earned that respect in the league. I think he'll learn from all that, and that all happened in the playoffs, right? Like I think his playoff experience will give this guy a much higher trajectory this year than we saw from him last year. Or, sometimes a guy doesn't respond well to that expectation. But I feel like Desharnais, given the fact that he's a little bit older, so he's entering his second year of hockey, but he's not a rookie in the sense that he's a 20-year-old in the league. This is a guy that has a couple of years behind him. I expect bigger things from him. I expect him to be a pretty consistent guy on that third pair. But you're right. I don't know that we'll see him move up. And look, I'm all right with that, because if you can keep a guy like Desharnais on your third pairing at his cap hit, I think that's just a great help for the Oilers. Like that might be the biggest value he has to the team, is that he is a very capable third pairing D-man with a low cap hit.
Absolutely. Like, we need value contracts, and his is shaping up to be a value contract for sure.
Yeah. All right, let's move on. We've got a couple of other headlines in there. I know. So just for those tuning in, Lotzi was a last-minute guest, so he hasn't had a chance to go through the articles. But this next one is from The Athletic, and it is if you go, the QR code's up. The title is "Which NHL teams have improved the most this offseason?" rating all 32 teams. And in essence, they're taking goal differential and they're giving it a net rating. And then they've given obviously a few, words on each team. But they talk about who's in, who's out for each team. This is not, this is going off of, pure statistics on new players versus players that have gone out, and where they'll sit in terms of improvement over last year. Number one in that list, any guess, just off the top of your head, who you think number one would be?
In terms of goal differential.
Goal difference added, I guess.
Goal difference added. Maybe Columbus, with what they did on defense and how bad they were last year.
Yeah, that's a hard question to answer, because I mean, obviously there's a lot of stats to go into this. Number one is the Dallas Stars. They've got Matt Duchene and Craig Smith. Out, they had Colin Miller, Domi, Olofsson, and Glendening.
Okay, Dallas was another one that was kind of circling in my head, because I really like that Duchene ad for them. But yeah, I mean, I missed some of the other moves that they've made. But yeah, that's
yeah. I think the interesting thing, their little write up here is Matt Duchene's a huge upgrade at roughly the same price as Max Domi, and I tend to agree with that. Like, I think that's a good move for them. What was interesting about this article, which I took a lot of when reading through it, was all of the teams that were better by subtraction this year. What's a team in your head that you can think of that might be better by subtraction this year, goal differential? The one surprised me on here, but it didn't surprise me. I guess I knew it, but yeah. It's still interesting.
Winnipeg is one that comes to mind, because I really like the return they got for for Dubois. Yeah.
Well, and by subtraction, I'm again, hard to think about this, but the Calgary Flames finished 7th on this list of goal difference added, and most of that by subtraction, with Trevor Lewis and Milan Lucic heading out the door. So that was a big one. So obviously, I'd say there's not much expectation of the Calgary Flames. So 7th most improved doesn't mean a whole lot. This goal differential is kind of an odd article. One that the number 2 actually is the biggest surprise for me, is the Detroit Red Wings. So here's the list of for the Detroit Red Wings: DeBrincat, Sprong, Gostisbehere, Comfer, Justin Hall, James Reimer, Klim Kostin, of course, and Christian Fischer. Out is Kubalik, Haig, Jordan Osterley, Philip Zadina, and P.S. Suter. So huge changes.
Yeah,
Salary added though was $22.9 million.
yeah, that's wholesale changes, especially towards the bottom of the lineup.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
like
it's
the breakout is a huge ad.
Yeah. DeBrincat was huge. Gostisbehere. I mean, I don't know that when I look at this team that I think, they're going places. But look, we all know what Yzerman had to deal with before he got there. I think he's done a good job. He's clearly a smart. He's got a brain for this. I think he'll do, wonderful things as the Red Wings continue down this path. That one was good. Here's another one that actually surprised me a little bit, which is a team, and I'm curious as to where you think they'll finish for the year. But number 3 was the Pittsburgh Penguins. They got Riley Smith, Ryan Graves, Achari, Lars Eller, and Nieto. Out was Jason Zucker, Kulikov, Dumoulin, Bonino, Poling, and Josh Archibald. The Josh Archibald, the the little missile there. So, your thoughts on the Penguins this year? I mean, obviously goal differential. Some of this is again addition by subtraction with the Penguins. Where do you see the Penguins this year?
I mean, they're in a tough division. Like they're in there with Carolina, with the Rangers, with New Jersey. Like those three, it's going to be tough to take those 3 teams down. Like all those names sound good, but at the end of the day, we're swapping mediocre for mediocre in a lot of those situations.
Yeah.
So I don't know if they finished just outside the playoffs last year. They kind of lost near the end. So like maybe they sneak into a wild card spot this year, but I don't see them finishing in the top 3.
I think we're officially in the decline of the Pittsburgh Penguins. I'd be surprised if they make the playoffs this year. But if they do, it'll be in a wild card spot. It's just interesting to see, this goal difference. They're sitting at number 3. Oilers actually are sitting at number 5, and theirs is definitely addition by subtraction, bringing in Connor Brown and out going Bjugstad, Yamamoto, and Klim Kostin. What I found interesting, this is Lecision. Or Lecision.
Dom.
Dom. Yeah. Sorry, Dom. Maybe I'll have to get you on the show. You can just help me pronounce your name properly. He obviously Yamamoto was a challenge for him last year. Likable guy, just never got back to that form he got when he was on the Nuge Draisaitl line. But he's suggesting that Bjugstad and Klim Kostin are below average players. I guess that's accurate, but if they're playing 3rd and 4th line, which they were, but I thought Klim Kostin's role on the team was a good one. And yeah. So it's hard to say what he means by that. I mean, maybe it might be accurate to say Kostin's on the bottom half of the league, right? In terms of production, but what he brought to the team was, I thought was important.
You want to know what his goal share was last year, Klim Kostin?
Yeah.
60.87%. 28-4, 18 against at 5-on-5.
That's pretty damn good.
That's pretty damn good. So,
yeah, that's above average in the league.
Well above average.
Yeah,
for me to sit here and say that it's addition by subtraction, losing that guy in a bottom six that has traditionally struggled to maintain an even goal share.
Yeah, interesting. I mean, either way, I mean, they're talking goal difference. So, take this article for what it is. It's interesting. It's also a good source for, who's in, who's out on each team and some of the salary added. Again, you can see that on the Athletic QR codes there. We've got another one for the Athletic. This is more NHL news. Sorry. Before I finish that one, this is for Angel because he's always listening. He's a big LA Kings fan. The Kings finished 14th with the goal difference added of 3.5, salary added of 7.1 million in Pierre-Luc Dubois, the redemption tour of Cam Talbot, and then Trevor Lewis, who was obviously talked about in the Calgary Flames addition by subtraction. Out was Velarde, which I think is such a huge loss. Jersey, Corpusalo, and Iafallo too.
Yeah,
Sean
that's another
Walker,
important player.
Kupari, Peterson. Like I'm sorry, Angel, but I look at this and the heart of the team, like some of these guys that we were as Oiler fans looking at and were worried about in the playoffs are gone. And to replace them is Dubois and Trevor Lewis. It just doesn't add up for me.
I mean, like, I can kind of see why they went about it. I mean, like, Dubois is obviously a second line scorer. So what does that bump Philip Deneau down to the third line now that you've traded Velarde in that deal? So you're Kopitar, Dubois, and who did I just say? Deneau down the middle.
Yeah.
Like that's pretty good. It's just like I'm worried about, if I'm a Kings fan, I'm worried about Dubois defensively, and whether you're going to throw your third line out against McDavid and Draisaitl in the playoffs. Use Deneau on McDavid as usual, and Kopitar against Draisaitl, and hope Dubois lights up a McLeod line. I don't see the matchups going well for them.
Yeah, that's a tough one. And I like, I don't I'm just curious. Like I look at this team and I think they didn't go the right direction. I think that's good for the Oilers. Maybe it's bad for competition in the Pacific, right?
I'm
Like
okay
if you
with
want to
that.
watch some, really good games. And maybe the Kings will surprise us. I don't know, but I just don't think they did what they should to get better. We'll see. Time will
Hey, the
tell.
King, they're still going to be a good team, and they'll still be in the fight for the division title. I just, like, in the short term and the long term, like, I definitely don't think it was the right long term play, but in the short term, I don't think they gained much, if anything, at all.
Yeah. No, fair statement. All right, we're gonna finish this off tonight with the last one. Again, this is a league article. It's again from the Athletic. Sean McIndoe. Do you know? Is it McIndoe or McIndoe? Do you know?
McIndoe? I'm not sure.
McIndoe. All right.
Sean.
Two guys we need to have on. We'll have to have Sean and Dom on the show just to get them understand. Put the QR code up for those who want to read. This is which NHL stars have great contracts. It's the return of Cap Court with a twist. So Sean's gone through 5. He's taken out some obvious ones like Kachuk, Draisaitl, Makar, and Jason Robertson. And actually, interestingly, which kind of put some other thoughts into my head, he also suggests Connor McDavid is, while he's got the second highest cap hit in the league, is also one of the best contracts in the league, which I don't disagree with. What that brought up to me was you've got this team with Leon Draisaitl and Connor McDavid, two arguably two amazing contracts, and we're in this cap crunch. It's kind of an interesting, may lead to other discussion, but that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about the 5 other names that are on here. And as Oilers fans know, you could talk all day about how we've used the cap to our advantage or disadvantage. that's likely to get the chat really going. Number one, what do you think? Number one, outside of those major contracts, who do you think's the number one in this list? Assuming I assume you haven't read it yet.
I have not. I'd probably look to some of the guys in Tampa Bay, like Nikita Kucherov or Steven Stamkos, because of no state tax down there.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, neither of those guys are on there. But those are fair statements. This one, and Jeff Aid would probably agree with this, is Tage Thompson.
No, yeah, okay, that's a good one.
Yeah. So I'll read the details. Sean's details on here. It says, last summer, on the heels of what we assumed was a career year, Thompson signed a 7-year, $50 million extension that carries an annoyingly specific AAV of $7,142,857. It kicks in this year and runs through 2030. Here's a guy that's like unbelievable score.
Yeah.
And for just north of 7 million in this league, they're paying guys, for 35 goals, I think, around that. I'd have to look. Somebody's going to tell me I'm wrong. But I agree. This is a great contract. Tage Thompson's a beast. He's awesome. I'd love to have him on my team.
Oh, absolutely. That big, skates like that, and has hands like that too. Like, he scored some beautiful goals last year. Got a ripper of a shot. Like, he's a great player. Yeah,
and he's 25, right? Yep. He's huge. Sean says he's 9 feet tall. In fact, so I was in Buffalo for the Oilers game last year, as you know.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't even have Tage wasn't even wearing hockey pants that were the right size for him. Like it was like wearing floods. That's how big this fellow is.
Wow.
Yeah. No, he's a big guy who can score. I mean, how rare is that? I love it. I love that. I love that contract for the Sabres. I've got a soft spot for the Sabres. Great contract. Next up in this list is Rupe Hintz.
Hintz. Yeah. That's a sneaky one. Yep.
Yeah. So he signed an extension last season, kicks in this year, 8 years, carries a cap hit of 8.45. He's had back-to-back years of 72 and 75 points.
Yeah, extremely underrated player.
Yeah, absolutely, right. And when he's on, he's on. Like he's noticeable every game. Like every time the Oilers have played the Stars, he's very noticeable. Love that one. And then of course, add to the Robertson mix there, which they took off the table on this particular article. Third is a goaltender. Any thoughts?
Goaltender. I mean, Jeremy Swayman's looking pretty good. Ilya Sorokin.
There you got it. I'll stop you right there. Yeah, he's 27 years old, which is a good age for a goalie. 8-year extension, kicks in next year, carries a cap hit of 8.25. Would you take him on your team for 8.25?
Absolutely, I would.
Yeah, it's hard. I mean, there's, the challenge with goaltenders is, you hope for that one that you can get that's in the 4 to 6 mark and just has a lights out year and it does the Aiden Hill on you or something. But in the absence of that, there's only a few guys out there like Vasilevsky and these really great goalies. Sorokin's one of them. And at 8.25, I mean, it's a steal for a guy that wins you games, right?
Absolutely. Like when you have a workhorse, like a guy like that, you don't need a backup that's going to play 40 games. You need a guy that's going to play 20 games. So you don't have to spend as much on him. So if you're spending $9-10 million on your goaltending, that's not bad. If you're spending that on Sergei Bobrovsky, Carey Price, that gets to be troublesome, right? Great goaltenders, but really limits your options cap wise. But
and it seems clear to me that Sorokin's not going anywhere, right? Like he's going to be good for a while, right?
Oh
Like,
yeah, absolutely.
we're
He's
not
just
talking
reaching his
Jack
prime
Campbell.
now.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Where it's good for half a season or whichever. We'll have to maybe next week or whatever. We'll talk about Jack Campbell, whether or not we see him doing a comeback. There's 2 more contracts on here. One is Brady Tkachuk, and he's 2 years into a 7-year deal that was $8.2 million. And when I look at these contracts, I think to myself, would I have that player on my team at that price? And hell yeah, I'd take Brady Tkachuk any day of the week for $8.2 million on my team. I hate him. I hate him.
One of those guys.
Yeah, absolutely. But would I take him on my team for $8.2 million? You bet I would. He's just in fact, I was we did a live draft show the year he was drafted, and I just kept screaming, like, I just want the Oilers to take Brady Tkachuk, like take Brady, however, if they could get him, right? Obviously that didn't ever happen, never came to fruition. But look, he's a leader. He's a good player. He, mixes it up. He's, obviously, anytime, Angel says can't stand any Tkachuk. To me, that's the kind of guy you want on your team, right? There's some guys. Look, I'd probably, what's his name in New York, the defenseman. Trouba. There's some of those guys where I can't stand them and I wouldn't want them on my team. Brady Tkachuk is not one of them. Like he's not even to me, he's not even as bad as his brother, right? Like in terms of, the dirty factor, right? Like or maybe he's just better at it, sneakier at it.
No, Brady plays hard, whereas Matthew is
hard.
just like, turtle. That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, agree with that one? 8.2, good deal.
I don't like. He's the guy I'm least excited about on that list.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, he's good, but I don't think he's got the same skill level as the other guys we've talked about here. You take him on your team. I think 8's probably a little bit rich. I think that pretty
depends
much
on the contracts you have on your team.
For sure. And for Ottawa, I think it's a great fit. Don't get me wrong. Like if I'm Ottawa, I'm very happy to have him on my team at that price. Yeah. But if I'm building around him, I'd want a guy like a Timmy Stützle on my team as well that I'm wanting to build around. Someone with a little more skill.
Everybody would love a Stützle on their team. That'd be great. All right, last one, and then we'll skip to last words for the night, which my short episodes are always still just an hour long, as is tonight. Last one on there is Quinn Hughes. In 2021, signed a 6-year extension with a $7.85 million AAV. It has 4 years left. One of the better offensive defensemen, Sean says, coming off a career best 76-point season. Unreal, especially given the fact of where he's playing. There's, it's funny because Sean does bring this up. Like, has Hughes been a disappointment given the sky high expectations he broke in with? Right. And there was, he talks about this there was, discussion as to where he fit in terms of the league's best defenders. Right. Where,
Mhm.
like, was he as good as Cale Makar or Adam Fox? And he didn't seem to sort of fit that mold last year. But you can't argue that this guy is pretty damn good. Right. And
Oh,
I
he
think
is.
he's hurt by being on the team he's on.
I think that's a fair point. Like the Canucks have struggled the last while, and I watch Quinn Hughes. Like he's always a threat when he's got the puck on his stick.
Absolutely.
Skating is great. Edge work is fantastic, but the defensive side, the actual skill of playing defense, defensive zone reads, that's where he falls a little bit short when you compare him to a guy like Makar or Adam Fox. It's and he's in their shadows too. What they've done winning Norris's and putting up the points that they've put up. That's a part of it as well. But yeah, I think Hughes is not quite the actual defender that those guys are.
So at 7.85 million, would you take him on your team?
Yeah, I'm happy to take 76 points from the back end on my team at that price. Absolutely.
I mean, this is where Ragu would would love to chime in, I'm sure, because he's always bad mouthing the Nurse contract. That gives you space on the Oilers if you traded Nurse for Hughes, although two very different defenders, two very different skill sets, and they both bring something different to the game.
Yep.
All right, that's it for tonight. I want to thank everybody for tuning in. Good crowd, lots of chat tonight, lots of things going on. This is going to be we're moving into next week will be the first day of August when we do Oilerslive Tuesday. And then we're getting into kind of the last part of the off season, really. Hopefully, we get some good news over the next little while. When's McLeod's arbitration ruling?
It's August 4th.
August 4th. So it'll be the week or a couple days after our next one. So we'll have obviously we'll chat about that when it comes. Make sure everybody check out heavyhockey.com. Lotzi, as he said, just put out an article today. I'm going to put the link to that back up on the QR. Scan that. Check that out. That's the Dustin Schwartz deep dive, which looks like a good read, and I'm sure it is. Some of the other articles up there on heavyhockey.com. Our young rookie on the team, Spencer Pomodi, did 15 top. He's starting the top 15 NHL prospects from the WHL. It's a 3-part series. He did the top 5. That one's good. Our man, Tough Call Pod, Josh Bolton, put up an article about Alexander Ovechkin, which I thought was very interesting.
Yes.
You, of course, talked about McLeod's arbitration case. Spencer again about some of the Oilers prospects at the Billy Morris Cup. Eric Friesen's got a couple articles up there. Anyway, lots of great content. It doesn't come as hard and fast as it does when games are actually happening, but we're trying to get you some information out there right now during the off season when things aren't quite as exciting. We are locking down for the Heavy Hockey Showdown dates and times. We've had a little bit of a hiccup in terms of finding ice for February 24th. So we'll see where that goes. But we may end up doing it, the Heavy Hockey Showdown on the Sunday. And then, as always, I like to tell you, we're constantly changing things up here at Heavy Hockey. There's going to be lots of new initiatives over the next month. Lots of things I'm trialing in the back end that I'm excited to talk to the team about and then excited to roll out to all of our listeners and everything like that. So, if you're on Twitter, you can find me at Oilerslive. Reach out anytime. I'm happy to chat and talk about hockey or respond to anything. I think that's it for me. Just great to have you on, Lotsy. You know the drill. You get the last word. Once you say good night, we're out for the night. To everybody else, thanks again for listening. I'll see you next week with another Oilers Live. We also have, not that tonight's guest wasn't absolutely amazing, but we've got some some big names, some other big names that aren't Lotsy. Other big names coming up in the next couple weeks that are going to be pretty exciting as well. So make sure you tune in. I'll try to put out little teasers if I can as they come. All right, have a great one, and I'll leave you with Lotsy for the night. Thanks, Lotsy.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Michael. So I guess everyone's eagerly anticipating news on Ryan McLeod and Evan Bouchard, and we have nothing else to look forward to this summer. But remain calm, Oilers fans. Those deals are going to get done, and even if the numbers aren't exactly as low as we want them to, we're going to get through this, and we're still going to contend next year. Don't sweat it. Aside from that, I'll just add to what Michael's saying. Tons of great content on the Heavy Hockey Network. We got a great team of writers with Spencer Pomodi and Josh Bolton and Kirk Morris once he writes once in a while, Eric Friesen, Regu Shawarma. We got lots of guys, and we've got tons of excellent podcasts as well, including Oilers Live, 97 Octane, Paddle Down, 99 Forever, the World Hockey Report, Fantasy Hockey Hacks. It goes on and on and on. So lots of content out there with heavy hockey and lots to be excited about for the coming season. Just thanks everybody for tuning in, and we're excited to keep bringing you more content. But until next time, have a good night.